Welcome back to the channel, guys. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more videos about travel, immigration, finance, and everything in between. So 2 months ago, I made the video, Canada, You Have Failed Me. And in that video, one of our subscribers called Charlene commented the following: do let us know how you plan to leverage your Australian passport to access different visas in the US. That would make an informative video. Charlene, if you're watching this video, I have made this video entirely for you. So Charlene is one of our subscribers and a very loyal one too. I really appreciate your support, and I just love how you're always interacting in the comments section, which is really nice. So today's video is basically about how you can leverage your citizenship status in one of these first world countries once you do get it. Now, of course, this will be more targeted towards immigrants, just because I personally feel like if you're an immigrant in a country and you do get your citizenship, you don't necessarily owe that country that you're in any kind of like loyalty. So a lot of the times it's all just a matter of what works for you and your family, in terms of work, in terms of career, in terms of certain benefits that you may or may not receive in certain countries. In a previous video, I did mention that I've now acquired my Australian citizenship, and that is of course the same video that Charlene asks the question. So let's just start with how this all works for those that don't understand. Basically, a lot of these first world countries have what they call trade agreements. And in a lot of the cases, it's almost like an elite club, where a lot of these countries will have trade relations between each other, but at the same time, those trade relations will also allow certain perks and certain benefits for citizens of either countries to sort of move easily between the countries, if that makes sense. So the first example that I'll go with is Australia and the United States. Australia and the United States have a free trade agreement that basically allows skills to be traded between those two countries. And these skills are from citizens that live in either country. So in the case of Australia and the United States actually has a visa called the E3 visa, which is specifically designed just for Australian citizens that want to move to the United States to go there to work. So this visa is for skilled citizens, and there's a whole list of what that means in terms of what sort of occupations can fit into that skilled category. It's basically just like a niche H-1B visa that is specifically just for Australians. So you might be wondering, why is this important? Why does an E3 visa exist when you can just get an H-1B visa? And that is because the H-1B visa is designed for skilled citizens from all around the world that want to move to America to work and work for a US employer. The problem with that is those visas are very limited in numbers. So there is a quota, there's a certain number that they give out every year. And as you can imagine, there are hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of applicants applying for H-1B visas from all around the world. The good thing with a visa like the E3 visa is that it's targeted. So what they'll generally do is it will actually have a quota. The quota is not that great. I believe it's about 5,000 people annually. But if you now put that into perspective, Australia only has 26 million people. And what you actually find in a lot of the cases is that not many people, and actually very few Australians, want to migrate from Australia to the United States to work. And as a matter of fact, the E3 visa in the last 3 to 5 years has never exceeded 50% of its quota. So that just goes to show you that this is basically a visa that not many people are trying to apply for. So what that means is that the chances of you actually getting that visa when you apply for it is way higher than you applying for an H-1B visa. So that is the E3 visa. And I personally believe it is a good option for someone that's Australian that wants to move to the United States, because this visa is renewable indefinitely. So what it actually means is that you could basically be a permanent resident in the United States on an E3 visa, because every time that visa comes to expire, you can just renew it. You always just need to make sure that you are employed at all times, which is a condition of the visa. Now I want to talk about the working holiday visa in Canada. As mentioned before, these first world countries tend to have this sort of like elite club where they're all in it together and they have various trade agreements between each other that makes it very easy for citizens of the said countries to basically move freely or easily between them. So in the case of Canada, Canada is actually a member of the Commonwealth, and so is Australia. So there are very close ties between the two countries. If you're Australian, you are actually eligible for the International Experience Canada class, which is basically just a visa program in Canada that allows foreigners from very specific countries to go to Canada for a maximum of 24 months and basically just work there and travel and do whatever it is that you want to do in Canada. The good thing with that is, one, it's a very easy visa to get. Secondly, this is a visa that can also be used as a pathway to a more permanent visa. So, for example, if you're an Australian that plans to move to Canada, live and work there permanently, then what you can actually do is you can start off on a work holiday visa. You can spend those 24 months in Canada working, gaining Canadian experience, and then from that point, you can then use that experience to get into the express entry pool. And at that point, you know, if you've already got 24 months of Canadian experience, that should give you enough points to then be able to get an invite in the express entry pool. And you basically just jump the queue really to get your Canadian permanent residency. And the International Experience Canada program is actually a little bit broader than just working holiday visas. So the program includes other visas like the Young Professionals and the International Co-op or Internship class, both of which are a bit more targeted towards a younger demographic that sort of just wants to travel and experience Canada while they work there, but with the intention to come back. So the best bet would be the working holiday if you're a person that's trying to do it permanently. And again, processing times for the said visas are generally very short. And this all just comes back to those trade agreements that these countries have between each other, because these countries have very good relations. And finally, one of the things that I wanted to mention was the VOE systems, or visa on entry systems. And this is actually something that is very interesting. So when I traveled to Thailand a few months ago, the people that I traveled with, my friends, actually had Australian passports. And it actually didn't occur to me until very last minute when we actually landed in Phuket that if you're an Australian citizen and you want to go to Thailand, for example, you do not need to apply for a visa, and you can do what is called visa on entry, which basically means that you just arrive at the airport, you pay, I think $50 or something like that, or probably even less, right at the point of entry, and then you are just granted your visa on the spot. Simple as that. You're free to explore Thailand for, I think, 30 days. And at that point, if you need more days, you can always extend it. This is something that was very fascinating to me because I have a Zimbabwean passport, and the whole process of getting a Thai visa was so cumbersome. So firstly, there is no Thai consulate in Perth anymore, which means that I had to liaise with the Thai embassy in Sydney, and you know, with the different time zones, I had to call them and they wouldn't pick up, and they weren't always available, and then I'd email them, but then they wouldn't reply these emails. It was so cumbersome. And then after applying for the visa, I then had to mail my physical passport all the way to Sydney for them to put the stamp in with the visa in it, and then they sent it back. So it's a whole process that, look, you have to do it months in advance just to get a visa. It's cumbersome. The reason why I mention VOE is that what a lot of digital nomads and new millennials are now actually doing in these first world countries that have citizenship in these first world countries is that they're taking advantage of these systems like VOE, where, for example, if you're an US citizen, you can pretty much just live and work in quite a lot of countries around the world with very little hassle. So I'll give you the example of Bali. A lot of digital nomads these days actually live and work from Bali. And basically, a lot of Australians do that too. So in my case, with Australian citizenship, I could basically move to Bali, live there, and then work from Australia. And how I would be able to do that is simply because every time I will get to Bali, I'll basically just get a tourist visa via visa on entry at the airport, which would then give me 30 days in Indonesia. And 30 days is much longer than what I would need at any one given time in Indonesia, and then I'll then fly back here to Australia and then fly to the mine site because I work fly in, fly out. So you can already see where this is going, because now you can really leverage that trade relationship between one of these first world countries and pretty much a lot of these countries around the world, just to give you free entry or quick and easy entry at any time that you want it. And a lot of people now live in Southeast Asia and places like Indonesia, where, for example, the cost of living is significantly lower than here, wherever they may be in these first world countries. And this is actually something that I am personally planning to do. So I am planning to move to Indonesia simply because the cost of living here is just so high that I would rather just live in Indonesia, for example, where I don't have to pay as much rent. I don't have to spend as much money on, just general necessities, and I could still live a very comfortable life for way less than what I'll be paying here in Australia. So there you have it, Charlene. I hope that answers your question. And basically, it just becomes a game of figuring out what benefits you have with the citizenship that you have. In a lot of the cases, if you have citizenship to one of these major first world countries, so the United States, the Canadas, the Australias, the places in Europe, then generally it's very easy for you to travel around the world relatively hassle-free, which also gives you a little bit of an advantage because it now allows you to sneak in these other benefits as well, like remote work, for example. So now you can be a US citizen that is employed and hired in the United States of America, but you live in Bali, for example. You don't have to spend as much as you'd be spending in the United States in terms of cost of living, rent, and everything. And you're in Bali. You're basically at a tourist holiday destination and you live there. So you can do touristy stuff, you can travel as much as you want. You're not limited or you're not held back by immigration. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And Charlene, please make sure to drop another comment in this video if you have any more questions. The same with everyone else. I'll catch you guys in the next one.